Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 2020, and the first work session.
But it's on.
So we're excited to have that. The first thing on the agenda is, happens to be citizen comments for items that are not on this agenda. I don't have any speaker cards, so I assume that nobody wants to speak, and we'll move right on to special event permit for the Pilgrimage Music and Cultural Festival at the Park of Harlansdale Farm to be held September 25th through 27th, 2020.
So I'd like to speak to actually both items 1 and 2 together. Item 1 is the specific annual permit and an event application for the 2020 Pilgrimage Music and Cultural Arts Festival. And then item 2 is the 5-year permitting component. You may remember a couple years ago, we allowed for that for larger scale events to do multi-year permitting. And of course, it's permitting, but it also provides for the regular annual after-action review and components and an annual review of that next year's specific application, year-specific application, just like you see in number 1. So this would update that. We did a 5-year long-term permit back in 2018 to take it through 2022. Did not update that or refresh that last year, but we are looking to or bringing that forward this year, working with the organizers. So we've got them here along with our team from the Special Events Advisory Team and have them talk about that. I don't know, Monique or Glenn, you have anything you want to touch on, and then we'll let our event organizers speak to.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the city leadership and for BOMA for supporting the city staff during the festival, before, during, and after. It took all departments literally to pull this off, and we received the support we needed to provide a good, safe, and fun environment for the citizens and visitors of this community. I'd also like to say that it was a pleasure working with the Pilgrimage Group. We were able to interact and achieve the same common goal by developing plans and testing plans and contingencies in order to allow for a safe and a festival. And as far as 2018, we learned some lessons. We went back to the drawing board. We redesigned some of our plans, mainly being the traffic plan. Our law enforcement partners, along with our streets department, were very instrumental in ensuring that we had a traffic flow plan that would allow for normal and emergency egress in a timely manner. And as far as traffic went, I think the plan worked as designed. We did have a couple of incidents within the event. At closing, we did have a severe medical call, but it did not result in any disruption of traffic flow or emergency vehicles coming in or out of the footprint. So I think it goes to the team that came up with the plan and how well designed it was and practiced. And we appreciate everybody working together on this.
I would too just add that we're finalizing the after action report for 2019, but we don't expect to be any major changes in the operations plan or the traffic plan.
Thank you for having us tonight and for hearing our 6th permit application work session. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Monique, and all the authorities and officials and stakeholders in Franklin for supporting this event. We strive for nothing less than to be a world-class boutique festival that fits Franklin's just great reputation and as a city. And we continue to be responsive and learn each year about how to be better. I am happy to say that the tabletop exercises and the planning and the efforts that go into the each year, and then again with this past planning, really resulted in a festival that I think has been the best produced festival we've done, and that's a testament to our team, to you guys, to the city, and just to the roots growing deeper as we continue to improve and get better at producing this festival.
I have nothing to add to those eloquent words.
We do work closely all year round, and increasingly getting granular into the details of how to produce a good festival. We're happy to say that You know, we're already working on the lineup and all the planning and the details that go into our 6th annual festival. And again, we just appreciate you guys. We're always available. Our office is at the factory. I'd like to introduce Liz Dean. She is our office manager and works on a daily basis here in Franklin to support the efforts. So thank you.
Questions, comments, ready to move on? Alderman McLean, Vice Mayor.
I was glad that the revised plan seemed to work, although it may be fair to say it wasn't tested in quite the same way as it had been in years past. I assume there's a couple of typos here. It says the start-end times of the event, 10 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. each day, and then setup begins 9:14 to 12 a.m. I don't know if you mean midnight or not, but, and then it looks like on page 2, there were, question 18 was not answered. And then for clarification, question 20, I don't know, I mean, if this is accurate, fine, but what percentage of funds will the beneficiaries receive? And it was 2%. If that's what it is, fine, but just when we get this at the voting session, perhaps we could have typos and omissions included.
Sure. Thanks for pointing those out. Yes, it doesn't, the bill doesn't start at midnight. It's a morning start on the 14th of September. That's our request. We do share through the Pilgrimage Foundation a percentage of our revenue. It's built on a ticket metric on the number of tickets we sell, and so it does change every year. But those are the beneficiaries listed on there. And it does roughly equate to about 2% of the ticket revenue. And so could have used a percentage sign after that. But thank you for pointing that out.
Alderman Speedy.
I was just going to say congratulations on the artist from last year sang the national anthem at the national championship game last night. And I
That was
guess
cool.
I'm assuming there may be a few logistical additions with the Franklin Road streetscape this year. And then I was just going to pass on the third comment is I have had several people wish that maybe the music would be allowed to go on until 9:30 on Saturday night. Maybe not extend to Sunday night.
We'll find somewhere in the third board for it.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I think that's an interesting idea, and we've put in the regular times on this permit. But that's duly noted and appreciated.
Duly noted, Scott, thank you.
Yeah.
Alderman Bransford.
Just have a comment that with your statistics here, we're looking at over 42% of the people are coming from at least 100 miles away. So we have a lot of, half of the people almost are coming from somewhere else to spend their money here. So we want to continue to see that.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to, if we're ready, I wanted to draw your attention to a study. This is a report card of sorts from an economic perspective. Chandler Thinks, one of your own businesses here, a scholarly shop that does these scientific studies. This is co-commissioned by Ellie and Visit Franklin and her team with Pilgrimage. There was a detailed survey and study and poll of our patrons and of Ellie's connectivity to the hotel and rental car and other businesses that create the tourism metrics that drive a lot of the success of y'all's city as a tourist destination. And so we knew we had a lot of folks from coming out of town. We knew we had a lot of hotel and restaurant visits going on, but we finally were able to quantify it in a way that I think gives us some black and white exciting numbers of what Pilgrimage brings. The numbers are fairly conservative by some economic impact studies because there's no multipliers in here. It's simply where a dollar lands in a till, and that's counted. It doesn't count multiple stops along the way. So, but there's a lot of data here, including out-of-town visits, including restaurant visits, and some other demographic data that I think is exciting. Hopefully, talking points when you're visiting with your constituents and one another about Pilgrimage and what it means. These are some real-time data on the festival last September. And on a relatively lightly attended festival, just I think partly due to the cancellation and sort of building that goodwill back. So we think these numbers continue to rise over time, which is exciting. But also thinking about this is the 5th year, you could multiply this times some factor near 5 and look at what pilgrimage has brought in the last 5 years, which went kind of fast, didn't it? I mean, to seem
Not
like
while
we
it
were
was
here
happening,
yesterday.
but
No, there's
feels
been
that
times
way.
where it felt like it was going like slow as molasses.
Alderman Berger?
Thank you for this sheet. It's real helpful. I was just going to say, I thought your numbers looked pretty good considering the year before, because you know, it was a tough year, and sometimes to get back up to speed, it takes a little while. So I thought it was really impressive. The other thing is, I think that all the comments I've heard have been very positive. Especially, want to say that the people that I've spoken to many times over the last year said your response to them after the rain-out session that we had the year before was impressive. There were some hiccups here and there, but they said overall, refunding money and the way you responded was exceptional. And I heard some really good remarks about that. People weren't happy that this happened, but they said, those things are out of our control, and they thought you did a great job about it, with it. And then people speaking about coming this year and attending this past year, rather, and comparing it, saying they thought it was remarkable. They thought the city did an excellent job. All the officials that were out there, from the Parks Department to the police to the fire to everyone, EMTs, everything. I just heard excellent comments. I think maybe I heard one negative comment, one criticism, critical criticism that I'll share with you later, but that's just helpful information.
Good to hear.
I was really very pleased to hear that, and to know that I think it went well, and these numbers are really good, I thought.
Thank you. We certainly learned a lot about communication and just how to address some of the aftermath of a cancellation that revolved around public safety. But that's when people are leaving, they have, it's disruptive to them having planned to come and spend the weekend with us. So we learned quite a bit, and I think we put that to good
Well,
use.
if you look at any other festival around the country and how they have to deal with weather, especially when it's outside, those things are going to happen. So you got baptized by water in a
Fire.
fire and water a couple years ago, and you've made the most of it, and I think you've done some really good planning, and I have heard you've worked very well with the city, and the city's been extremely helpful to you all as well, from what I've
absolutely.
heard. So congratulations. I thought it was
Thank
well
you.
done.
We'll continue to focus on the public safety piece, which is a lot of
Yeah.
what we visit about here in this room, and there's nothing more important than that piece.
Yeah, it's critical.
But what we also spend quite a bit of time on is just the cultural level of quality that the artists and the beverage partners and the culinary partners and the artisans and the makers, so that we can present an experience that makes people want to come and spend 2 days with us, and really compared to other festivals stands apart, and that's what we spend a lot of time curating and developing, and hopefully over time you guys will see our learning curve continue to dial in an experience that befits Franklin.
Okay, item 3 is liquor license application. Everybody good with that? Okay, item 4 is a resolution to affirm the compliance with Title VI regulations. Any questions about that one? We do this. So we'll move on to
Standard.
item 5, which is an ordinance to rezone 1.95 acres from detached residential R2 district to Plan PD 3.59 for the property located west of Crothers Parkway, south of Dandridge Drive. Are we going to consider 6 and 7 at the same time also? Is that what you want to do, Emily?
Just 5 and 6.
5 and
7
6,
is a
I'm sorry.
parkland.
Yeah, got you.
All right, y'all have seen this a couple of times. Good evening, everyone. This is the application to rezone and the development plan for what we're calling Carruthers Stacked Flats. It's essentially a big house and then another home next to it. It's 7 units. We did a lot of looking at the transition and taking that into account here. Even though the elevations aren't something we approve of the development plan, we wanted to have good transition there. So we had gone ahead and looked at it, and they worked really well with us, so if you have any questions.
Any questions, comments? Yeah, we're talking about 5 and 6 together. Citizen comment, is that what you're referring to? The letter or something?
I know the conditions for approval had some plat notes and sureties. I did not note anything about water meters needing to be removed or anything. There was a gas line easement that needed to be established, but there were conditions of approval that covered several things, nothing major.
I think there was a letter from a citizen that was talking about a cluster of water meters, and the water district would not allow them to be moved, and there was some concern that trucks would damage them and, you know,
Yeah,
that type of thing, so.
I left that to the water department, and if they didn't comment on it, then that was with them.
I don't know that we received that same letter to provide any response to that from staff, so we might
I
have
don't
to.
think I'm making it up.
We
but-
might, no, I mean, we might have to.
We have a letter.
We can follow
in the
up on that.
file.
We
do
can
have a
find,
letter.
oh, there is,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Alderman Martin, did you have a question?
Stacked flats?
We needed a name to be able to document the rezoning request and the PUD. There won't be a big sign out in front. These are, right, it's an existing duplex that's there now. That duplex is on septic tank, and that septic tank needs to be right. It's not connected to city sewer. So when these are built, it won't be a big name out front, like you would see in an apartment complex or a subdivision or something like that. The name here is just simply for the paper documentation through the city's process. It's not flashy. It's not- Right, that's really, yeah.
We were hoping for a British accent. Did you have another comment, Alderman Peterson?
The other thing were, apparently the other septic is also on that side of the road, is that right?
Sure, I can show you on the map.
I know,
That's fine. This is the existing conditions sheet here. The gas line easement runs kind
Right,
of
I
at an
knew
angle
that.
across the lot.
Okay.
The septic tank sits right in front of the duplex, but it's not in the gas line easement.
Everybody else good? Ready to move on? Item 7 is the Parkland dedication, Parkland impact fee agreement for Carruthers Stacked Flats between the City of Franklin and Pura Properties for payment of $21,520.
This is a straight payment based on the formula.
Item 8 and 9, rezone 17.53 acres from specific developmental mixed-use SDX 3.39, 68, 961 district to planned PD. I'm going to skip over some of that. For the property located south of Church Hill Place and north of Murfreesboro Road. And then we'll also be looking at the revised development plan.
Yeah, essentially, this is cleaning up of the zoning. Their development plan, they're changing, they're taking away some of the units they had planned for. They had a cul-de-sac that was gonna extend further, or a road that was gonna extend all the way around. They've changed that to a cul-de-sac. They're taking out some of the townhomes that were going to be there. And so this is a cleanup to show exactly what is going to be built. So they're reducing the number of units, and it shows that it reflects the new zoning of PD after the new zoning ordinance, but the entitlements are going down from what they were.
Okay, item,
There's an area that we were previously showing townhomes that needs to remain stormwater treatment.
Item 10, Resolution 2019-117, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the annexation of two properties located east of Lewisburg Pike, north and south of the intersection of Stream Valley Boulevard, Meadows and Villages at Southbrook PUD subdivision. And I think that goes through 13. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So this is a revised plan of the Southbrook development plan that you saw earlier this year. This is just for portions of that original plan that are on the eastern side of Lewisburg Pike, north and south of Stream Valley Boulevard. The revised plan largely meets the recommendations of Envision Franklin for the plan of services, annexation, and zoning. So those are being recommended favorably by both staff, and they were recommended favorably by the Planning Commission. The development plan, I can go in more detail. So for the development plan, Envision Franklin places Area B, which is south of Stream Valley Boulevard, into the conservation subdivision design concept, which says that new development should preserve a minimum of 50% open space strategically towards scenic vistas, greenways, pastures, trails, woodlands, or other uses that maintain scenic character, protect habitat value, and contribute to the life for residents, quality of life for residents. Area A, which is the northern parcel, place it in the single-family design concept. Both design concepts have similar recommendations to lot size and layout. Larger developments are expected to have a wide range of sizes. Single-family lots with dwellings accessed by an alley should have a minimum lot width of 45 feet and a minimum lot size of 4,950 feet as recommended by Envision Franklin. The proposed development plan meets many of the goals for the conservation subdivision and the special considerations for new development along Lewisburg Pike, including lot placement that faces homes onto streets or open spaces, as well as deeper setbacks for homes along Lewisburg Pike. In terms of lot dimensions, this plan has about 77 lots that do not meet the minimum lot width policy in Envision Franklin. Envision Franklin recommends a minimum lot width of 45 feet for single-family lots accessed by an alley. These narrower lots account for about 38% of the proposed dwelling units and 48% of the single-family lots within the development. Envision Franklin seeks to achieve vibrant neighborhoods with exceptional design, focusing on true housing variety, meaningful gathering spaces, and context sensitivity to the surrounding area. Some of these items are sacrificed if the vast majority of dwellings are either attached or noticeably narrower than what Envision Franklin recommends. A policy for minimum lot dimensions was adopted as part of the Envision Franklin land use plan for a variety of reasons, including to address architectural considerations, such as preferences regarding facade width, rhythm, and proportion of front-facing garages, to ensure adequate room for easements between lots is needed, and to give more specific land use and density guidance to other departments regarding sewer and infrastructure demands. Staff advises the consideration of infrastructure impacts when neighborhoods such as this are proposed with more intensity than what was forecasted with planning efforts. So for those reasons, staff recommends disapproval, and the motion for approval at Planning Commission failed by a vote of 3 to 4 just for the development plan. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Greg Gamble, and representing this application for Southbrook. We appeared before the board at the Joint Conceptual Workshop in September, and we certainly heard the board, mayor, and aldermen ask for us to consider hitting the pause button, have a more intentional phasing plan. Over here at the right, this is the full master plan that you may recall of Southbrook on both sides of Lewisburg Pike. There were concerns that the board voiced. Number one, the fire hall hadn't started construction yet, and it's now moving forward. Number two, the middle school on Henpeck Lane, it's now moving forward and should be open fall of next year. new Creekside Elementary School on Goosey Hill is now open and occupied by students. And then there was some concern about when the new interchange at Buckner Lane and Spring Hill would be open. That new interchange will take a lot of traffic off of Lewisburg Pike. A lot of people now are coming off of Goose Creek, getting on Lewisburg to head south to the northern neighborhoods of Spring Hill. So that intersection, that interchange on I-65 is going out to bid this month, and with anticipation of opening in 2025. So we took BOMA's recommendation and we hit the pause button on the west side of Lewisburg. We have filed a development plan for just the two neighborhoods that are north and south of Stream Valley. Phase 1 would be the southern portion of Stream Valley because the sewer access there is a lot simpler than the one to the north, which would have to sewer through Berry Farms. So this is not a development that would happen overnight. It also has phase components where we have a total of 205 homes in the plan. We're anticipating between 35 and 40 homes built per year. So even just these two neighborhoods, we're looking at about 5 years of development. I have a handout that I'd like, Mike, if you wouldn't mind passing over. This is illustrations that show the lot distribution of Southbrook. And we've color-coded the two neighborhoods for your review. The dark green represents all lots that conform to Envision Franklin. The lighter colors represent the 41-foot wide lot and the 34-foot wide lots that are less than the recommendation of Envision Franklin. What we're showing you in these, yes, ma'am? Sure. The dark green are all lots that conform to Envision Franklin's lot requirements. The lighter green, the medium green is a 41-foot wide lot, and the lightest colored green there is the 34-foot wide lot. What we're showing you in these illustrations are that those lots that do conform to Envision Franklin are ones that are visible along Lewisburg Pike, that follow all of the boundaries of the property. The lots that are smaller than Envision Franklin are on the inside blocks on the interiors. At the Joint Conceptual Workshop, several planning commissioners commented that the lots that do conform to Envision Franklin need to be at the ends of the blocks. They need to be the larger anchor locks at the end of the blocks. They commented that the lots that you can see from public right-of-way should be the larger lot sizes, and we've conformed to those on our plan. We have heard over the past several years that the city of Franklin is looking for more affordability in its neighborhoods. We are looking for a neighborhood here that has that diversity of affordability. We think that this smaller lot size allows for a large portion of home buyers that are going to be working at Berry Farms to be able to purchase a house in close proximity to their job. Berry Farms is currently entitled for 3 million square feet of office and 1.8 million square feet of retail. That's not going to happen overnight either, but it's going to continue to come. That job creation, that job growth is going to continue to come. And we believe that while we do conform to many aspects of Envision Franklin, and we see the importance of those transitional features, that it's also important that we have this lot diversity and this lot mix. With that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Alderman Bransford, go ahead.
When we talk about, multiple price points, affordability is a whole different animal, but multiple price points. I think that's important because that is how we can get the increased density, because we can create that smaller unit that would be somewhat more affordable than those in units. So I congratulate you on the mindset in creating that. And I appreciate the periphery is showing the more elaborate homes and not taking anything away from those smaller lots. As a matter of fact, it's part of enhancing the smaller units by being surrounded. And I like that inclusion. I just want to make that comment.
Alderman Barnhill.
I guess two or three different things, maybe. If we did no 34 to 44-foot lots, how many homes will that drop out of this right here?
We've calculated between 8 and 9 lots.
Okay, 8 and 9, okay? The point that I'm gonna try to make here is that, and let me ask, to get to that point. If we drop out the 34 to 44, what level of price point does that drop out?
It probably drops out the 5s and 6s.
Okay, so what we're doing is if we do this plan right here, we would have some homes at $500,000 and $600,000. If we do what you're asking and suggesting that we do, those price points drop out. We drop out 8 homes, and we go to a 700,000 plus price point. Basically, I would think that would be tremendously out of range of who we're looking for and who we're wanting to put into these houses and these lots. That being said, let me also say this. What you would also possibly do on this right here is if a senior citizen wished to downsize, they would not downsize out of a 3,000 square foot house into a $700,000 house based upon what you've just given us as far as a plan is concerned and what your concerns are. I understand your concerns, and I'm not diminishing those concerns. What I am trying to point out here is that the diversity that I know I've looked at has been price points, lot widths. We've moved around on garage setbacks and yard setbacks, and to the point where the garage is now 20 feet wide and the house is 22 feet wide or whatever it is. And I think what your recommendation does versus this right here, I think it drives up, well, I know it does, it's not a thing to it. I think it drives up the lowest priced house here to be unobtainable for a great many citizens of Franklin. Now, that being said, let me go back again and make one more comment. Anytime we go to a chamber meeting and anytime we go to anywhere else, we hear this constant, look at the industry we're bringing in, look at the growth that we're promoting, look at what we're projecting here in Franklin. Look at the county giving a tax rebate, a tax incremental rebate on something other, to have a business or an industry move here. But yet, when we come back and say, we're going to back up that other half, and that's the housing for the people that's coming here for those industries, we're now saying at those prices, I'm not sure that they can't live here. So what we've done, we've brought the industry in, we've driven the housing to Spring Hill, Chapel Hill, Columbia, wherever, and now we've suddenly got the roads in, and they're suddenly full of cars. And this may be oversimplifying some of the things that we've done here, but it looks to me as if we've got one end saying one thing and one end designing something else. And I like the plan, and I like the diversity in the houses and the lot sizes. And I would love to see the price point a little less than that on a 34-foot lot. But that's sort of, and I maybe have rambled a little bit and gotten somewhat off base on some of the things, but I just don't see us being functional, and we're looking and working together on where we're looking at going. So, but,
Let me start off and welcome other staff members to clarify or talk a little further about the basis for the recommendation. I think it is, none of those price points are in the workforce to begin with. That's a concern. If you're going to give something up and give up a standard, you're still not getting what you're looking for. You're not getting workforce priced housing. You're not getting workforce priced housing. I think that's an issue. I think you ought to consider that as you look at this. Nearly half of the single-family homes don't meet the lot standard, and none of them are in the workforce priced range. I just think you ought to think about that. We are working on an amendment that would provide some flexibility to go below the lot minimum, but nearly half of your single-family units not meeting the minimum is extreme, in our view. I mean, I think that's part of why we've recommended what we've recommended, is that is a judgment call, but maybe disproportionate. And, you are getting, it is more affordable, but it is not affordable. You know what I mean? That is the challenge we have here. We're still not hitting the mark where we have heard over and over again that there's a need. So what's the answer? Well, I think part of this is it's good to provide flexibility, but boy, it'd be good to see some help and assistance and some targeting of workforce-priced housing when you provide that flexibility to folks in the development community. Now, we can't do inclusionary zoning anymore. We can't provide those incentives or rewards. But boy, it sure seems like that ought to be considered. And, is there a quality or a housing stock quality issue when you start going to these very small lots? I think that's another consideration as well. So there's a lot of trade-offs, a lot of things to consider. And kind of the basis for what we're looking at is just the sheer number of so many that are below the minimum, and what the end result is for it. You're just providing more lots, but not necessarily ones that help get at what one of the needs has been identified in the community.
And if I can add to that, just real quick.
And I don't know if staff has anything else. I want to provide sort of I think Alderman Barnhill sort of said, I'm not sure where the recommendation, does it work against some of our goals? And I want to clarify kind of how we've looked at it.
Well, a large part of the recommendation in Envision Franklin has to do with all the plans that were done in conjunction with one another. And while this may be a small part of the overall plan of Envision Franklin, every decision has an impact on what is going to happen in terms of infrastructure demand. And so we have to consistently apply the policies in Envision Franklin so that we can make sure that we're taking that into account. As we go about this process of looking back at Envision Franklin through February and March, we can revisit some of those plans or make the decision to eventually revisit some of those plans. But a lot of our recommendations stems from the fact that all these different aspects were looked at together. And we want to make sure that we're accommodating things in the long term with the infrastructure that's been planned.
Thank you, Emily and Eric and Joey, and good evening. The reason I'm here, because the conversation that we're having needs to have some context to it. And hopefully I can add a little bit about that. Is first of all, Envision Franklin, our zoning ordinance, and historically in Franklin, we've looked at the design and context of a neighborhood. Really, as Joey mentioned and Envision Franklin says, we're trying to create exceptional, vibrant places that draw people, their families, and businesses here. And recently, the conversation has gone and shifted a little bit to, well, if we have smaller lots, we're going to create more affordability. But we don't know what that affordability goal means. And if I may, Alderman or Clyde, you said a couple things, and Greg and Mike Ford had mentioned, these smaller lots, if I was correct, would probably be in the $500,000 to $600,000 range, and you would like them to be a little lower. Well, the reality is when we leave the market to price the homes, they're going to be sold at the market rate unless we have some type of guidelines or restrictions. So if things keep going the way they are, we keep building this exceptional community that's so desirable. Maybe by the time those get built, they'll be worth 600 and 700,000. And we don't have a goal of what we're trying to achieve in affordability, whether it's for lower income families or workforce families. And that's been absent of our conversation. We are going to go on a tour in a few weeks to talk about this specific issue. And hopefully we can come to some agreement. What we're also going to show you on that tour when you have smaller lots is execution. Is what does that mean as far as drainage with homes closer together? The other part of it is infrastructure as we plan our community going forward. In areas where we have existing infrastructure and we're adding more density to areas that we're in more of the outskirts of the city where we can plan infrastructure, and what does that mean? The last comment I would like to leave you with today as you think about, there are a variety of strategies for affordable and workforce housing. One that the home builders would argue is allow all this density and let the market take care of it. Well, Southbrook isn't going to solve that on this few acres of land. The city of Franklin isn't going to solve by creating more density. And maybe if Williamson County, all the jurisdictions just allowed endless density, maybe we'd start to see an impact. But perhaps all of Middle Tennessee. Then we can start to see the market forces push down prices. So if our goal with Envision Franklin as it is today and historically has been, that's created this great place, is design of neighborhoods, then we should follow the plan, because that's what we have in place today.
Vice Mayor, and then I'll recognize Alderman Berger after that.
I have a reason for asking this question, and it's not because I plan to do anything with the answer except make a rhetorical point. What's the density of the plan you're asking for approval? Roughly.
We have 204 lots on about 75 acres.
Okay, so
So,
3.5?
I think it'd be less than 3.
It's
Okay.
2.74.
2.74, okay, counting the open space and everything else? Okay, so some of us have been hanging around in this room long enough to remember when we didn't have all these elaborate and thorough plans, we just had an unwritten litmus test. If it was 2.0 or higher, it didn't even get off the ground. It didn't get through the Planning Commission, it didn't get to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, or if it did, it died a sudden death. So I applaud Mr. Barnhill's evolution in this, because both of us were here when that was true. So I've kind of gotten to be, maybe I'm not going to take credit for being the only, but I've kind of been put in the position of being an advocate for policies that at least force us to consider the impact of our policies on the affordability of housing in our community. And I have been dealing with that issue and all these others that are balancing for 20 years now, 22. And I've come to the conclusion that the market is the only one that provides a solution that is large enough to actually address the problem. I've been here when we talked about quotas and making every development throw 10% into affordable, and I promise you all that would do is not just not solve the problem, it would permanently solidify the problem because no one would ever build more than that. With all due respect, the suggestion is not that we just let density go wherever and whenever, but the fact of the matter is that any artificial, any policy that artificially, and almost in those cases always only temporarily, reduces the price of entry ultimately collapses under its own weight. I mean, if we had some policy that, and I'm almost grateful that the state took away inclusionary zoning from us, because I think that's an inadequate remedy. If you are serious about creating affordable housing, anything that says, well, whenever you build X number of homes, Y number of them have to be affordable or entry or workforce or whatever term you want to use. Because the problem is larger than that. Now, the reality is that we have a community that hasn't really wrestled with this affordable housing issue at the minivan mom level. And I don't say that to be disparaging. I mean, at the level of people who are not invested in hiring employees or addressing, you know, for example, the city of Franklin. What percentage of our city of Franklin employees live in the city of Franklin?
Less than 25%.
What percentage of employees of the city of Franklin would, if they could afford it, live in the city of Franklin? And you may not know the answer.
More than 25%.
But it's more than 25%. And so what are we to do? Well, we can just start paying everyone more, and then they can buy a house in Franklin, and maybe that's one way we could deal with it. But we're the ones who make policies that directly affect the price of the house, okay? And to Mr. Gerth's point, yeah, sure, okay, we could make whatever decision we want on Southbrook, and it won't change the course of history by itself. Until there's a sustained commitment to doing something about it, it's not going to change. And no Band-Aid solution is ever going to touch the scope of the problem. And I've told people over and over and over again, if you don't want to do it, okay. It's a rational thing to say, I will suffer the consequences of the absence of affordable housing until you can't get chicken nuggets. And then you will care. And I say that to really make it clear where it's going to happen. The tipping point for this conversation in the community, we're not there. We're not there. We're just not. And we're not going to be there until you can't get chicken nuggets when you want them. Now, the best reason to do affordable housing is not so that you can get chicken nuggets when you want them, because that's a problem that seems a little trifling.
Are you talking about workforce?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm talking about being able to hire people to work for you to make chicken nuggets, or teach kindergarten, or get on a fire truck and come save your life, or any number of other worthwhile professions that we need to have the quality of life that we want and that we currently enjoy. But little by little, it's slipping away. But the most compelling reason that I can offer someone who can still get chicken nuggets and hasn't had to have their life saved by a fireman who might have driven an hour and a half to go to the station because he can't afford to live any closer than that, to work at the station in Franklin, thank God. The best reason is because there is a direct connection between affordable housing and road miles, and therefore traffic. So people say, we had this conversation on Columbia Avenue about, when we had the question about could they build more apartments down there? And people were saying, the traffic. I said, go look at Chick-fil-A. You want traffic? We'll just give them another Chick-fil-A out there. But if you let people live near where they work, they don't get in the way as much. If you sit on Columbia Avenue and you curse the policymakers because of traffic, then ask yourself, where are all these people coming to and going? They're going to work. From where? Many of them from, as Mr. Barnhill said, or somebody said, Spring Hill, Lewisburg, or even Alabama. There are people that work at the hospital that drive up from Alabama to go to work. Those people, God bless them, are in your way when you're just trying to get chicken nuggets. Okay? So I'm telling you that we're just not there. I've been watching this evolve, and everyone that moves here, and I love it when I get the emails now that say, Well, I moved here in 2009, and you've gone and ruined it now with the traffic. We're building Mac Hatcher because of you. I mean, so I'm going to continue to advocate for affordable housing, maybe even radically, because somebody has to. Because if somebody doesn't, then it's very easy to sit here and say, well, those 35-foot lots aren't quite as cute as we'd like them. Or more, in a more sophisticated argument, we didn't plan the sewer for that many houses. And that's real, right? Like, some of the conversation that we had the other night about the zoning ordinance as a whole was a little disappointing to me because we're decorating. We have gotten to the point where we spend more time than we might ought to concerned with decorating and picking the color of shutters than we do about really looking into the future. Because I promise you, if you're sitting at this table in 2040 and you didn't do anything about affordable housing, the pitchforks and the torches about traffic are going to be real by then. So, I mean, Mr. Barnhill, I took you off the hook for filibustering the issue, but whether we should do it here, maybe. I think there's something to be said for the fact that creating the smaller lot sizes here really doesn't dip into affordable or even close. Moving the price point here down to $500,000 doesn't grant anyone who is a firefighter married to a teacher an access to a home in Franklin, probably. That's true. But we also shouldn't just rigidly stick to the idea that people who argue against density for quality of life have got it right. Density is the way you create affordability, and when you create affordability, you are, in fact, it's counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Affordability and density is how you get to some amount of traffic solution and also maintain a level of employees in the community that provide the services that make our community have a high quality of life. So.
Alderman Berger.
I'm really confused. This whole discussion went from your development to affordable housing, which was not the topic tonight. This has gone 180 degrees to affordable housing. I'm totally confused because you brought a development here. You said nothing about affordable housing. All you said was in the inner lots would be more affordable price points. To me, a $500,000 home or a $490,000 home, which I think you talked about, is a lot more affordable for working people than a $700,000 home. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is exactly what you said to us tonight. I don't know why we're talking about affordable housing. That's for another day and another time and another subject. No one here in this presentation did I ever hear that you were bringing us affordable housing. Correct? Correct?
That's correct.
All right. All right, so backtracking all these great things that were said, Dana said some wonderful things, Clyde said some great things, Pearl did. I agree with most everything that was said here tonight. But I think we need to backtrack and get back on track to your development. Because I'm not here to talk about affordable housing, frankly, but I would like to see a $490,000 home versus a $700,000 home in this development. I would. And because there are people working down in Berry Farms, a husband and wife that can afford a $490,000, $500,000 home versus a $700,000. They'll never get in a $700,000 home. And they're working in those areas.
So are we or are we not talking about affordability of housing?
We're talking about
Reason to do this.
not affordable, but the conversation went to affordable housing for our firefighters and our teachers and people that, and a lot of teachers that I know also have a wife or a husband that also works, and their income is quite large because they both work. But we have different people with different needs. We always will have that. But I think that we need to be talking about this particular development. I personally like the fact that you have internalized these smaller lots. And we were talking about, I think, Emily, you were talking about, you know, the impact on structure, infrastructure, drainage, and things like that. Well, then, if we've got a problem there, how do we address that problem in Berry Farms? How did we address that problem in West Haven? Because, by golly, last time I looked, they had 34-foot lots. We approved those. We approved a lot of those lots. How did we deal with structure and infrastructure? And we seem to be doing okay. We seem to be working okay with stormwater and drainage. So is there a particular problem here that we can't handle? I don't know. But it just seems to me that, you know, we talked about policy here tonight. Well, yeah, we certainly have policies that make building here a lot more expensive because of our policies. And we need to probably take a look at those and say, are we happy with those policies? I don't know. Maybe there's some that need to be switched around and changed to help our builders make more affordable, attainable housing, if we're going to talk about workforce housing, versus more affordable housing in a development. The problem is we live in a free market. Hello. Are we all going to try as a government to control the free market? I don't think so. We have very expensive housing here because we have very expensive land prices. And we have a lot of fees to pay, and we have a lot of policies to match up to, and you name it, just check them off. And that's what makes it very expensive in our area. And it's not just Franklin, because the whole Middle Tennessee area is getting very expensive. So I'm not in favor of taking these smaller lots out. Honestly, if we can do it at Berry Farms, we can do it in West Haven, that's a BOMA decision. And I, for one, would be in favor of these smaller lots inside. And how many lots would that be? 77?
Out of 205, there are a total of 83.
83. That's not half. That's not
When you
even-
look at single-family homes, it's 48%, correct?
It's not half yet, but,
Of the single-family units, 48% of them are below
All
the
right.
standard. That's
Fine,
what I said.
fine.
We have 47 big house units that are attached. Those are certainly less than $500,000.
All right. So you're bringing us 205 houses, right? Or 6 houses, whatever. Fairly small development, you know, decent size, but, you know, small on the scale of a lot of these other places. I think Clyde made some very good points. I agree with those. I'll just say ditto to those. And I would support those middle lots as is. And I would like to be shown if we have an infrastructure problem. I would like to be shown if we have a stormwater problem. And if so, then how do we deal with that? The other thing is, I just have one more question. If you build this and you're not building the west side of Lewisburg Pike, will you be doing the intersection? Because to me, that is a must.
Yes, and I have a map I'm happy to hand out to you, but it shows the difference between the current laneage at Goose Creek and Lewisburg. Would y'all be interested if I handed this out?
Oh.
Mike, do you want to pass
Okay.
that down?
I think I had that one.
While you're handing those out,
And
Mr. Girth, you want to make a comment about the intersection?
Not the intersection.
Okay.
All right.
Just a general,
Yeah, please.
if I could, while you're sharing. And appreciate the dialogue, because it is important, and obviously, we all see that. Maybe I share this with you, because sometimes I get involved in conversations when Emily, her team, Paul and his
Yeah.
team, and our development services team meets with developers to talk about Envision Franklin and how important having that plan in place is to our community, and what those guidelines are, because as you've seen in the hall down near the Planning, Engineering, and Building and Neighborhood Services Department, those 2 8-foot tall banners that have timeframes about when we review plans and provide various services, because we realize time to market is important. But Alderman Berger brought up that, the land prices are high. And when I sit in the meeting, I see there's an increasing conversation that occurs quickly in those meetings from the developer or the property owner that's going to purchase the property. Well, I need those many lots because the price of the land is so high. And I would offer that staying to the plan will help reflect the reality of what price value of land really is. Because if our goal is creating a community of exceptional, vibrant neighborhoods that's protecting the natural resources, then maybe the land prices will be more in line with what we're trying to create in the community. That's also part of everything that you said, but I wanted to share that because, you just don't buy everything because you're gonna buy it and then expect the city to create more density. So I just share that tidbit. Yeah, thank you.
You want to make a comment about the intersection, Mr. Gamble?
Yes, everything that you're seeing in pink will be added to the intersection of Goose Creek and Lewisburg. This is the full build-out of this intersection. A lot of the issues that we have here is inadequate laneage to provide for the traffic movements, and this will bring about that improvement.
I have Alderman Blanton and then Alderman Speedy.
Great stuff being said. I just wanted to bring up another thing that's not been a part of the discussion, is that this conservation, whatever it's called, help me, what's the next?
Conservation
Subdivision is also something that we created, and I understand it. I think it's great to try to protect some of our rural, areas that are starting to become developed, and I appreciate that. But I think it also ties the hand of the person who's trying to implement development there, because they do have, a smaller area to be able to develop. And to go so far, and I said this to Dana when it first came out, after we've been dealing with another development out in Carruthers, trying to match the development that's around it. I see a lot of effort here to try to make things keep with that conservation idea. And to me, that's masterful to try to be able to do, so when you're driving down Lewisburg, you're not feeling like you've got high density in your face. And the other thing too is, when you compare, and this is a great, West Haven and Berry Farms, these products are very successful in those areas. My biggest problem with the whole development has been from day one, the traffic. And the idea of phasing it, well, I wish it would never happen in a perfect world. Envision Franklin decided the development that was appropriate here. And to me, they've been very cognizant of that, except for the smaller lots, but it makes sense in this situation. I think otherwise, we should have zoned it as a state residential and kept it at what the county's looking at going to, so.
Alderman Speedy.
I guess my comment would be, and I would be in favor of the variety of the lot sizes, is that by the time these homes get built, I think we're talking about who can afford a $500,000 home right now or a $600,000 home. That needle could move very quickly, because right now we're looking at 3.5% 30-year fixed mortgage rates that maybe some people in the $120,000 household income could afford, but those jump to 5.5%. You're going to have a more limited group of people that can afford even a $500,000 home. And I guess, I know we're going to have the drive around, and the county's dealing with density as well. But I guess in my opinion, this is not Mays Creek. If we're going to decide that we need to allow density anywhere, and we've got a major state highway, we've got a federal highway, we've got 2 interchanges with a third coming. I mean, it's kind of like, if not here, where, I guess.
I'm going to make a comment if I might, and I appreciate everybody's comments and input, and as we try to give staff some direction as far as future policies and so on. But I think every time somebody brings a plan in and talks about a better price point, that's going to start the same conversation over again, because I think we're all very sensitized that we need more housing for the people that work in Franklin. And, you know, this board has never really flinched at density. We've been pretty generous on density. I think that, you know, I've challenged the home builders in the past saying, well, you know, y'all need to be part of the process of part of the solution also. I mean, it can't just be state government and city government solving the problem. You know, Alderman or the Vice Mayor mentioned the tipping point, but we're at the tipping point. Our hotels have difficulty finding people. Our restaurants are having difficulty finding people. I just visited a company that's adding a couple of hundred more jobs down in Berry Farms. Those folks can't afford to live here. So, you know, the challenge goes out again. Bring us something that we can approve that's going to work on the workforce area. You know, that's my biggest concern. I think the Franklin Housing Authority is doing a good job approaching that affordable segment, but our most critical need, in my opinion, is workforce housing and how can we get more of our workers living here. So, anybody else?
I would just echo a couple of comments the mayor made. We just approved a beer permit. The lady was looking for 80 employees before she could even open up her business. So, and she was smiling when she said what she said, that anyone I've talked to says that's the biggest challenge we've got going. So that's some of the things we're looking at. I'm sitting here trying to figure out why or how dropping 8 lots and raising from 5 to 7 is a solution. That's basically what I'm looking at when I do this. I don't have a problem in some of these smaller lots interior to this right here. I don't think that affects the schools. I don't think that affects the traffic. My disappointment is I see a price point on there that I don't think is low enough to affect anything. But I can guarantee you, $700,000 is not going to solve workforce housing.
Well, I think the vice mayor, people wondered why I put him on the Housing Commission, and I think you see why I put him on the Housing Commission. I think he has a lot of passion for the issue and is going to bring a lot of energy, and we're going to find some solutions. We all have to work together to solve the problem. It's not just the board, it's not just the home builders. You know, eventually the home builders are going to be not making the money they're making now because nobody wants to build a home because we've killed the golden goose. So let's find a solution before the golden goose gets killed.
I mean, Mr. Stuckey made a good comment about when we allow and give certain things, we are not getting anything back from that for this workforce community. This is not the project. You coming in at a different approach. But as we go forward, I would like for us to look at that. I would like for us to say, create policies that say when we allow more than the density, when we elevate the density, we should be getting some back from that for workforce housing. So I don't know what that looks like, but Margaret, you made a comment like, how? How do we do it? We've been talking 20 years. How do we do it? And
Alderman Berger, you want, I'm sorry.
No. I just want to make sure, is there a magic bullet? And we are the policymakers, guys and gals.
The reality is on that point, though, is the state took that tool away from you. We used to provide that if we increased your density, that a certain portion of that increased density went towards an affordable or workforce housing price point target. We can't do that anymore. So we rely on what the market chooses to deliver in that regard, if they try to find a way to do that. And I think the challenge that was issued here tonight helps maybe, that dialogue needs to continue, because
we will not
you are
have a
giving up on
workforce.
certain standards that have certain benefits and are the basis for how we've planned infrastructure. And are you getting something that helps address some other community needs in exchange for giving in other areas? That's a good question.
We will not have a workforce in our community that lives in our community. That is happening every day for the last 20 years. That number has been dwindling. And 10 years from now, rather than Wendy's being closed, there would be other Chick-fil-A type places, including the Nuggets.
And I will add that 25% of the homes here will absolutely be in that workforce market. Those are the big houses that are permitted as a part of Envision Franklin and the conservation subdivision, so.
Let's see, I've got Alderman Peterson hasn't made a comment, and then I'll recognize Alderman Berger.
Well, first of all, so much of the land, and not necessarily just right here, is really unbuildable land. So if you actually did the real density on this, I mean, the number of houses owned on the property that's being built on, it's a lot higher density than 2.74. And not just here, but on everything else. So keep that in mind. But the other part is that really, I've said affordable housing is 100 times harder to try to do something with than traffic. And you know how we have really fought on that and fought for that. But the reality is that as far as I know, and I've tried to ask about places that have managed to manage their affordable housing well, I have never had anybody tell me about a place where it works. I mean, that it really, that they have not just solved their problem, but have done a great deal to help it. Because every time I've asked about a place like that, then whenever I look into it, it turns out that they're not doing that. So it's not just here in Franklin where that is a problem. Right. Not at all. And as I say, there's surely not an easy answer here.
Alderman Berger, last
Real
comment.
quick,
Oh, you want to speak?
So, we're very different from Brentwood. Brentwood's chosen to be 1 per acre. We've chosen much more density in our community. I just want to say that because a lot of people go, well, why are you doing this? Because, well, if you want a 1 acre lot, our neighbors are right here. The low employment rate is one of the biggest reasons why we don't have people for these jobs. People are saying we don't have jobs because we don't have people for these jobs because they can't live here. Well, that's somewhat true. I'm not denying that can't be true, but we have a good economy right now. We have the lowest unemployment we've ever had in years and years and years and years, and we've got people doing other jobs, and we've got people advancing and going into other jobs, and so it's very difficult to find people in the service jobs right now. But I want to go back to the subject at hand, which is your development, not affordable housing. So with that said, I'd like to revisit at some time when we talked about this with the land use plan and the zoning ordinance, but we were talking about these 45-foot lots, and somewhere, somehow, somebody suggested 45. Who was that? How did that happen? And why did that stick? And why did we pick this out of the, well, I wouldn't say air. There's reason somebody picked it, but they picked a number and they put a number on it. And now we're sort of like hemmed in, but yet we have the authority to make that decision. Obviously, we've done with West Haven and Berry Farms and other places. We've done that. We've made that decision. So we need to revisit that, because when you look at development and you look at design and you look at all this stuff, Emily, I think that there's a reason that we probably need to have the ability to do this, and we do have the ability.
Sure, and we are revisiting that with the development tour on February 3rd. That is, we're going to be doing a survey. We're going to be looking at individual lots, showing you what different lot widths are. Part of the reason the 45-foot wide lot came into effect was kind of an analysis of existing lots across Franklin and what worked better in terms of drainage and infrastructure. That's not saying that it can't be changed. But when we do change it, we need to make sure that we're accommodating it across the board. But we will get into that discussion on February 3rd so that we can proactively look at everything. But it does have real impacts on the bottom line when it comes to sewer infrastructure, road infrastructure, and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I'm not denying that, and I
And so
absolutely
we are
agree with
working
you.
on an
Yeah.
amendment to the land use plan that would provide that flexibility. So we are doing exactly
Good,
what you
good.
said.
And we
And
have.
have been working on that for some time. And what we'll see on the tour is
I
give you
thought we
some
would,
tangible
yeah.
examples so that you can see what we're
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
thought we were going to do. Plus, we have better stormwater regulations these days, and we have better technology that gives us the ability to do a much better job than we used to do.
Alderman Blank.
Very quickly, and it's gonna sound like I eat granola and sing Kumbaya, but, and Ken May can back me up on this. We have seen affordable housing be successful in some of our Vision City visits. And to me, and I've said this for years, it comes down to the heart of the builder. It comes down to the builder wanting to make it happen, and I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat, but if you look at David Crane, who has built every house for Hard Bargain at cost, that's what made Hard Bargain exist. If you go back to, I don't know if it was Greenville where we went, and we met one gentleman who had incrementally built houses in this small neighborhood, and he was a happy man because he was making a difference in his community. So maybe we need to start with the Home Builders Association, but to me, it comes down to the heart of the builder, whether you're trying to make your legacy or if you're trying to split the difference and provide a product that's needed. So,
Alderman Martin, quick comment. We've redefined quick tonight.
I don't think we're talking about Southbrook when we're talking about all this, because, you've got your plan, you've done what you could do, you have different price points, and that's a good thing. But as far as talking about all this other stuff, I don't think that's what we're talking about. We have neighborhoods in this town that are affordable. They're not new with marble countertops and that kind of thing, but they're here. They're all over this town. And if somebody really wants to buy a house, they can do it and fix it up themselves. It's been done. It's being done. So I can't say we don't have affordable housing. My family's bought them, and I know they're here. But here's what's happening. People are coming in from California, they're buying them, they're redoing them, and they're renting them out as vacation rentals. So they're here, and I don't know what we do about that. I don't know how we stop that, but we're taking affordable housing away from our residents today.
Okay, item 14, which is the parkland impact fee. Do we want to comment on that? Apparently not. We'll move on to water availability for 2407 Hiven River Lane. Everybody good with that? And then the next one is deny sewer availability. Everybody good with that one? Okay, and then we'll go to the procurement award to Standard & Associates, Inc. of Chicago and Illinois, and the total estimated annual amount of $44,075 for police promotional process assessment services for a term of award for the human resources and police departments.
We just got you this contract today. We apologize. We're getting it back from the vendor. So it's a fairly straightforward procurement process, but we were not able to get the final contract back until today. So we got it to you early this morning on the computer. So, and we did have it on both agendas so that we could keep moving with our promotional process. But we understand that you did not get it in a real timely manner. So.
But you still recommend approval?
Yes, yeah. I just want to make sure you're okay with that.
Okay, we'll go to item 18, which is revision of the organizational chart within the fire department.
Yes, sir. What we're doing is we're reclassifying the deputy chief of administration and emergency management to a battalion chief of administration. And then we're redesignating those duties and responsibility to others in the department. We're diversifying our workforce. We're taking advantage of the men and women of the department who take an interest in emergency management, specing fire trucks, building fire stations, managing programs. And we're trying to build a sustainable fire department so that when we retire, we have people that can take our place, and they know those processes.
So really, this is, bottom line, this is actually a little bit of a savings because you're going down a pay grade with the one position, and we had concentrated the emergency management facet in that one job, and we're spreading it out through other folks, so we're able to fill it at a battalion chief pay grade, and so we think this will be a better way to move forward with the way we're want to be organized and where our folks are at in terms of those responsibilities.
So you've done cross-training that will allow for cross-training within that department?
Yes, ma'am. We have a number of men and women in this department that have a specific interest in an area, and we're trying to empower them and give them the opportunity to excel in that area.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before we,
Sure.
nothing with you, it was, Eric, could you send us an email whenever you put something out new, on the day of the meeting or
Yes.
something like that?
Sure.
Because, very honestly, I had worked on this last week and everything, and I did not know that I needed to get back on it today.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
you
we'll be
just need
glad
to
to
let
do
us
that.
know.
Yeah, my apologies.
Because
Yes.
it wasn't on mine, I had to download it right
Okay.
now.
So item 19 is a consideration of change order, which comes in $29,500 less. Everybody good with that?
And we finished up the driveways on
Yeah.
Hillsborough Road.
Yeah.
And then we're going to immediately go to item 20, which is Resolution 2019-133, a resolution acknowledging the letter of agreement between the Tennessee and the Main Street Program and the Downtown Franklin Association. Invite their director, Jill Bergen, to come on up and say hello.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Alderman, Jill Bergen, the Main Street Director at Downtown Franklin Association. I appreciate the chance to come before y'all tonight. Can't believe it's a year since I did this last time when I had just started this job, but as y'all know, the biggest part of my job is maintaining Franklin's accreditation as a national Main Street community. And that involves a big report that's due the end of this month, and they like to have a letter of agreement between you and the National Main Street Organization and the DFA. So it's basically the same letter as last year. Nothing material is different. And I just wanted to thank you for your cooperation this year, coming to our events, things like that. And I've really enjoyed this role, and I've loved getting to know the merchants and everyone else involved with the City of Franklin. So thank you. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I'm just curious, I'm just curious. When I read this, I said, what are we actually agreeing to? Because we're not controlling this, but what are we agreeing to?
Correct. And it's primarily between their national organization. They want to be sure that if we use any of their logos or signage, things like that, that you agree to do
Okay.
that and to maintain, or help the DFA to maintain those standards in ways that are reasonable and expected. But primarily, it's just a
The
technical.
synergy between the two.
Exactly.
Got it.
Any other business?
Can I make one introduction?
Sure.
David Diaz is here. He's a new member of our team. You may remember adding a position in the budget for construction contract administrator, and David is filling that position. He's are you in your second week now? Second week it is. So he's jumping in and learn a lot and really work. His position will really work within our team to help facilitate delivery of capital projects, and he comes with a great background, paralegal background, worked in some significant responsibilities in the corporate setting, and now he's joining us here in local government and public service, and we're glad to have him on board. So welcome, David.
See you at 7.
I did have a question, David.